There she is. I love experimenting with different sourdough recipes and methods, but I need some good loaves of bread right now because all these experiments have really been giving me weird bread. All right, so we need 240 grams of active sourdough starter, 600 grams of water for now. We'll add the rest of our water later with our salt. The water that I add is 85 degrees. The way that I get to my desired dough temperature, which in this case is 78 degrees, is initially through the temperature of my water. So Maurizio Leo has a water temperature calculator on his website that you can use, where you take the temperature of your flour, of your starter, and of your home or environment, and you use those to come up with what the temperature of your water should be to get to your desired dough temperature. The temperature of all my stuff is pretty much always the same, so I just know my water should be about 85 degrees. But if you're not sure, you can use that calculator and it'll give you a good baseline. So my starter is floating nicely. And then I'm going to add 1,000 grams of bread flour. I use King Arthur unbleached bread flour and I store it. Oh, it's this massive thing. I buy 50 pounds at a time from a local restaurant supply store. I can get 25 pounds for around $23 to $27. It lasts me about 2 months. I'm going to mix all this together with my Danish dough whisk until it's a nice shaggy dough. I'm gonna wait to add my salt. When you mix your starter, flour, and water together at the beginning, but you hold on the salt, it's called a Fermentolyse. It's similar to an autolyse, but you add the starter. Kind of gives the dough a little bit of a head start because salt slows down fermentation. In this initial mix, I'm not really focusing on building any gluten or working on any dough strength really. I'm more focused on getting all of the ingredients incorporated really well. So as soon as you feel like everything is really mixed well and there's no pockets of flour or starter, you can stop. Okay, now that the dough is mixed together well, I'm gonna quick take the temperature to see where we're at. It's 81 degrees. My home is 75 degrees, so this just sitting here on my counter for a little bit will lower the temperature. So this will sit on my counter for an hour and then I'll come back and add the salt and a little bit more water. In the meantime, what I like to do is go ahead and refeed my starter. My starter is fed. Be back later. Oh, make sure you set a timer because I forget all the time. It's been an hour. It's time to add the salt and a little bit extra water. 79 degrees, 20 grams of salt. And I'm gonna add about 40 grams of this water, and we're just gonna dimple the salt and the water in. And once this is fully incorporated, we'll kind of gauge how the dough is feeling. Does it need more water? If it's feeling stiff, the dough will get kind of funky, like all these layers while you're mixing it together, but it will come together. I find that the dough, once it's coming together, I like picking it up and doing a slop and fold. I like just doing it in the bowl so I don't have to clean off my counter, but you could put a little bit of water on your surface and do these on your countertop if you wanted. The consistency of this dough is fairly firm, but this seems good to me. So if your dough has this kind of texture, this is gonna be so easy to work with. Super high hydration doughs stay pretty sticky and they're a lot harder to work with. They just require more skill. I'm going to just spend 2 or 3 minutes strengthening the dough with stretch and folds. So I'm gonna cover this and let it rest 30-45 minutes. You don't have to time this exactly. That's just a benchmark, but honestly, kind of like whenever you think of it, just pop over and do a couple stretch and folds. It's not that rigid. It's not like to the minute. But if you're forgetful like me, I like to set a timer. Otherwise, I will literally forget about my dough for hours. Now we're going to do our first round of like proper stretch and folds. I'm gonna grab the dough, pull up, and lay it back down on top of itself. Rotate, do the same thing. I'm kind of working the dough and stretching it A lot of recipes say to just do this 4 times, which is fine. But I personally like to do this until the dough really resists me, which it's already starting to do. I'm trying to get as much stretch out of it as I can before the dough kind of seizes up a little bit. Okay, so see, I can't stretch it as far as I could before. So that's that. We're at 76, so I'm gonna put this in the oven with the light on to try to get it closer to 78 so that I can stay on track with about a 4 to 4.5, 5 hour bulk fermentation. Gotta go get my kids from school, so it'll probably be about an hour before I come back and do another set of stretch and folds. Goodbye. So my oven felt pretty cold on the inside actually. So a little trick I like to do is take some really hot water. I just get it out of my espresso machine. And I just kind of put it in the corner. And that'll kind of warm it up a little bit in there. Obviously, the oven did its work. We are getting bubbles forming. The dough is getting a smoother surface. Here's a look at the bottom. Still 76. So it didn't go up at all, but at least it didn't go down. Since the dough is progressing so well in the bulk fermentation and we're really getting close, I'm gonna switch to coil folds, which you just grab underneath the dough and pull up. This is much gentler on the dough compared to stretch and folds. It's making sure I don't pop too many bubbles. It looks like. So I will let it rest, but I may not even get another coil fold in before the bulk fermentation is finished on this one. I'm gonna stick it back in the oven and check on it again in another 30 to 45 minutes or so. All right, this is at 7 o'clock. It is loud in the background, so I'm gonna voice over right here. I decided the bulk fermentation was done because it's not sticky to the touch on the surface. There were tons of bubbles all around and it was very, very jiggly. For some reason, this dough did not slide out of the bowl as easily as I'm used to. However, I have a theory on why. I mentioned at the beginning that my favorite dough temperature is 78 degrees, and I was working hard to get that temperature throughout. But no matter what I did, this dough just kept dropping in temperature. So by the end, it was about 75 degrees. And I find that cooler dough does not dump as easily out of the bowl as warmer dough. So I divided this dough into 2 because this recipe makes 2 loaves. And I am just gently using my bench scraper to coax this into a ball. This is called the pre-shaping, and I am so gentle with my dough because I don't want to disturb any of that beautiful bubble gas formation within there. I want to maintain as much of it as I can so that my bread is light and airy and cloud-like when I bake it later. So I'm just doing the same thing here with the second bowl. Just coaxing it into a ball with my bench scraper. If you need a little bit of water, I like using that little mister to mist my surface. I do not like using flour personally. So I let these bench rest for about 30 to 40 minutes uncovered, and then I'm gonna do the final shaping. And my favorite final shaping method lately is the caddy clasp, and it's the single caddy clasp. All you do is flip the dough in your hands and then just fold it. Just one time, that's it. And then you pinch the seam together in the banneton. Both of these bannetons are very well floured with rice flour so that this dough doesn't stick. It is the most simple shaping method. And if you're worried that, oh, maybe there's not enough surface tension to get a good ear or good belly on the loaf, it's totally not true. You can see that in the result of this bread. It came out great. So again, I'm flipping the dough into my hands so the smooth side is facing down, and then I am just clasping it. It's called the caddy clasp because this method kind of originated with Wayne Caddy. His last name is Caddy, so we all kind of call it the caddy clasp. Is he the first one to ever come up with it? I don't know, but that's what we all call it, and that's what we know it as. The dough is nice and jiggly, so many bubbles on the surface. I'm gonna cover these up with bowl covers and they go in the fridge overnight. Here's what we're dealing with. It's looking beautiful. It definitely rose a bit more. Just to make sure there's not any crazy sticking, I'm just gonna lightly dust that before I put it on my bread sling. Turn this out. You can also use parchment paper if you don't have one of these. This is optional. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't, but you can put extra flour on top and it just makes your scores pop a little bit more so you can see them better. But obviously it's just an aesthetic thing. I have lots of different bread lambs, but I don't know. I was just feeling this one today. Do a score down the side. And I'm gonna reinforce it by kind of going under this top part here, and that will give a little bit of an ear. And then maybe just some little designs. Okay, the Dutch oven has been preheating in a 450-degree oven for, I don't know, 15 to 20 minutes. Put this in here. Ice cubes are optional. I used to do an entire handful and realized that was entirely unnecessary. So now I just do 1 or 2. I guess 1 because my ice cube machine just stopped working. That just helps create a tiny bit more steam. All right, this is going in the oven for 30 minutes. I feel like this is like the moment of truth. Huh? Oh my gosh, she is beautiful. Look at that. It's got a big, beautiful belly. We got the lift. Oh, gorge. Okay, I'm gonna put this back in the oven till it gets nice and golden brown. You can go as long as you like, whatever your preference is. If you like a really light loaf, you might lower the oven temperature to 425 and just let it go like 10 minutes. I like it golden brown, so I'm gonna keep it at 450 and I'm gonna go probably 15 minutes and then I'll check back in on it. Oh, so pretty. Oh my gosh. Look at how beautiful it is. There's from the side. Got the ear going. Oh, it's just beautiful. Moment of truth. Loaf is looking gorgeous. There she is. Oh my gosh, this loaf of bread is so pretty. Oh, it's so fluffy and soft on the inside. It's like a cloud. Oh my goodness. This bread is so gorgeous. That one ice cube gave us these nice blisters on the side. Ugh. Okay, we gotta try this. Here we go. There is no better bread than sourdough. Oh, I'm so happy with this. If you try this recipe, let me know how it goes. Don't mind me, I'm just gonna go eat this whole loaf probably.